Brothers and sisters, when we think about Islam, many people only picture prayer, fasting, or pilgrimage. But the Quran is not a book only about rituals, it is a guide for life. It speaks about family, justice, compassion, and even how we deal with money, trade, and business. And this is so important because money and wealth are things we all interact with every single day. The way we earn it, the way we spend it, the way we save it. These are all matters of faith. Allah did not leave us to figure this out on our own. He revealed guidance in the Quran to protect us, to uplift us, and to remind us that money can be both a blessing and a test. If it is used correctly, it becomes a source of charity, a means of supporting family, and a way to build communities. If it is abused, it can lead to corruption, greed, and injustice. That is why the Quran speaks so directly about it. Let us begin by remembering one simple truth. In Islam, money is not evil. Business is not evil. Trade is not evil. In fact, the Quran speaks positively about trade as long as it is fair, honest, and free from exploitation. What Islam forbids is dishonesty, greed, and oppression. The real question is not whether you have money, but whether money controls you or you control it. Think about it. Every human being desires security, comfort, and stability. That's natural, but the Quran teaches us that wealth should never become an idol in our hearts. It should never blind us to justice. And it should never make us forget that ultimately, everything we own belongs to Allah, and one day we will leave it all behind. The Quran reminds us again and again that wealth is a trust. It is not permanent ownership. It is something Allah allows us to hold for a short time to see how we use it. Will we hoard it? Will we oppress others for it? Or will we spend it wisely, uplift the poor, and use it for good? This is the test of money. One of the most powerful things the Quran teaches about business is fairness. Fairness in how we trade, fairness in how we weigh and measure, fairness in how we keep promises. The Quran warns against cheating people, against taking more than what is due, against cutting corners in business. Because at the heart of every dishonest trade is injustice, and injustice is what Allah does not love. Imagine a society where everyone cheats in trade, where everyone lies about their products, where people sell fake goods, hide defects, or manipulate prices. That society cannot survive. Trust disappears, relationships break down, and people lose hope. But imagine a society where honesty is the foundation of trade, where business is built on trust, where contracts are respected, and where money circulates fairly. That society will thrive. The Quran calls us to build the second kind of society. Brothers and sisters, another thing the Quran warns us against is greed. Greed is when we are never satisfied, no matter how much money we make. Greed is when we are willing to sacrifice our morals, our families, and even our humanity just for more profit. The Quran speaks about those who pile up wealth endlessly, thinking it will make them immortal. But the truth is, money cannot buy time, money cannot stop death, money cannot bring peace of the heart. Think about the richest people in history. When they die, what do they take with them? Nothing. The wealth they hoarded goes to others, and often their obsession with money leaves behind broken families and damaged communities. The Quran wants to free us from this illusion. It wants us to see wealth as a tool, not as the purpose of life. At the same time, the Quran does not tell us to abandon the world or to become poor by choice. No, Islam is a balanced religion. The Quran encourages us to seek the blessings of this world, to work hard, to build businesses, to provide for our families. But it also reminds us never to forget the hereafter, to keep our hearts clean from arrogance, to use our money in ways that please Allah. This balance is so beautiful. Work hard, yes. Build your career, yes. Strive for excellence in your trade, yes, but do not let money make you forget prayer. Do not let money make you arrogant toward others. Do not let money make you blind to the needs of the poor. That balance is the essence of Islamic economics. The Quran also speaks about spending. It warns against wastefulness. Do not throw away money on things that bring no benefit. Do not show off your wealth. Do not use money just to prove status. At the same time, the Quran warns against stinginess. Do not be so tight with money that you harm your family or refuse to help the needy. Islam calls for moderation. Spend where it is needed, save with wisdom, and always remember the poor. And one of the greatest principles the Quran teaches about money is charity. Giving in charity is not just an act of kindness, it is a purification of the heart, it cleanses greed, it builds empathy, it reminds us that money is not just for us, it is also for those in need. Every time we give, we are proving to ourselves that money does not own us. We own it, and we can let it go for the sake of Allah. But brothers and sisters, the Quran also warns against one of the greatest dangers in money, exploitation. That is why Islam forbids interest and usury, because it traps the poor in endless cycles of debt. It allows the rich to get richer while the poor get poorer. The Quran paints this as injustice, and injustice has no place in a society of believers. Instead, the Quran calls us to fairness, to mutual benefit, to trade that uplifts both parties. If you look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you see that he himself was a businessman. He worked in trade, he built trust through honesty. People called him the trustworthy because he never cheated anyone. His reputation was so pure that people were drawn to him, not just for his products, but for his character. That is the model for Muslim business people: honesty, trust, and integrity. And this is exactly what the Quran wants us to practice. Imagine if Muslims around the world became known as the most honest business people, the most trustworthy traders, the most ethical workers. What kind of impact would that have on the world? People would say, if you want fairness, go to a Muslim. If you want honesty, go to a Muslim. That is the vision of the Quran. But sadly, when we forget this guidance, the opposite happens. Corruption spreads, cheating spreads, oppression spreads, and societies collapse. That is why the Quran's message is not just about individual wealth. It is about building entire communities where money is used responsibly, where trade is fair, where business is ethical. Brothers and sisters, let us remind ourselves of the bigger picture. Money will come and go. Businesses will rise and fall. But what remains is the record of how we dealt with wealth. Did we earn it honestly? Did we spend it wisely? Did we help others with it? Did we remember Allah while using it? This is what matters in the end. So, as we live our lives, let us take the Quran's guidance seriously. Let us build businesses with honesty. Let us spend with generosity. Let us avoid greed, dishonesty, and oppression. Let us remember that wealth is a trust from Allah, and one day we will be asked about it. Brothers and sisters, the Quran's teachings on money, trade, and business are not just rules. They are mercy. They protect us from injustice. They build trust in society. They remind us that real wealth is not in the bank account, but in the heart that is content and the hands that give. May Allah make us people who earn wealth with honesty, who spend it with wisdom, and who remember Him in every transaction. May He bless our businesses, our families, and our communities with prosperity that leads to gratitude, not arrogance. And may He allow us to use our wealth as a means of success in this world and the next. When we pause for a moment and think about the meaning of wealth, we often fall into the illusion that what sits in our hands or what is stored in our bank accounts is truly ours. We say things like my money, my property, my earnings, my savings, as though these things belong to us in an absolute sense, but the Quran repeatedly reminds us that this is not the reality. The reality is that everything in this world, every coin, every note, every possession, belongs entirely to Allah. What we hold today is nothing more than a trust placed in our hands for a temporary period of time. It is not ownership in the ultimate sense, because ownership belongs to the Creator alone. When we view wealth this way, it changes everything about how we live. If money is a trust, then we must handle it with care, with honesty, and with gratitude. We cannot abuse it. We cannot use it to harm others, and we cannot hoard it as though it will stay with us forever. A trust is something borrowed, and the borrower will one day be asked to return it. This is exactly how our wealth functions in the eyes of Allah. We are asked not only to return it, but also to account for how we managed it, how we spent it, and whether we respected the responsibility of holding it. This is why the Quran connects wealth so closely to morality. If wealth were truly ours, we might believe we are free to do with it whatever we like. But since it is a trust, every decision we make becomes a matter of accountability. When we earn, we must earn with integrity. Cheating, lying, or exploiting others may bring in quick profits, but it breaks the trust. When we spend, we must spend with wisdom. Throwing money into wasteful things, boasting in front of others, or indulging in extravagance is a violation of the trust. When we save, we must save with responsibility. Saving is not a problem in itself, but when saving turns into hoarding, or when it turns into neglecting those in need, we have failed to honor the trust. Think about how different our communities would be if every Muslim lived by this principle. Imagine a society where every employer paid fair wages because they knew wealth was a trust. Imagine a marketplace where every seller described their product honestly because they understood they would be accountable for this trust. Imagine families where every provider looked not only at the comfort of their household, but also at the needs of the neighbors, the orphans, and the poor, because they knew their money was never truly theirs to begin with. Such a society would be filled with justice, compassion, and security. It would be a society that reflects the values the Quran came to establish. But brothers and sisters, the danger is that when we forget this principle, wealth begins to corrupt us. We start to think in terms of ownership. We begin to believe that our effort alone brought us what we have. We start to cling to money as though it can protect us from everything, and slowly, the trust of wealth turns into a trap of greed. We want more and more, and no matter how much we gather, it never feels enough. This is why so many people in this world, despite being surrounded by riches, still feel empty inside. Because real contentment does not come from holding more, it comes from understanding that money is just a tool, not a purpose. When we embrace wealth as a trust, every transaction becomes an act of worship. Buying and selling becomes an opportunity to show fairness. Paying salaries becomes an act of justice. Spending on one's family becomes an act of love and mercy. Giving in charity becomes an act of faith. Even the simplest decisions, like avoiding wastefulness or choosing to invest in something that benefits others, becomes a form of worship because it proves we are taking the trust seriously. This mindset also protects us from arrogance. If everything we have is a trust, then there is no reason to boast. Just as wealth came to us today, it could leave us tomorrow. We did not create it, it was given to us, and what was given can always be taken back. Arrogance over money is like a servant bragging about the king's crown while forgetting it belongs to the king. The Quran constantly warns us of this arrogance because it blinds people to their duty and makes them forget the temporary nature of this world. We should also remember that wealth as a trust is not limited to money alone. It includes our skills, our time, our opportunities, and our access to resources. A person may not be rich in money, but they may be rich in knowledge, or in health, or in connections. These too are trusts. If you have knowledge, you must share it. If you have health, you must use it for good. If you have influence, you must use it for justice. Everything Allah gives us is a trust, and we will be asked about how we used it. At the end of the day, brothers and sisters, the test of wealth is not about how much we had, but about what we did with it. Two people may have the same amount of money, but one spends it selfishly and dies with arrogance, while the other spends it wisely and leaves behind a legacy of good. The difference is not the size of the bank account, but the awareness of trust. So, let us remind ourselves that the cars we drive, the homes we live in, the clothes we wear, the food we buy, all of these are not permanent possessions. They are borrowed blessings. One day, our hands will be empty, and only the record of how we handled these blessings will remain. If we use them with honesty, generosity, and gratitude, then we have fulfilled the trust. But if we use them with greed, arrogance, and injustice, then we have betrayed it. Brothers and sisters, let us live with the awareness that wealth is a trust. Let us earn with honesty, spend with responsibility, save with intention, and give with generosity. Let us remember that what we hold today is not truly ours, but a test placed in our hands by Allah. And let us pray that when the day comes to return this trust, we return it with clean hands and hearts that are content. When we speak about wealth, most people immediately think of numbers, possessions, and material gain. They think of houses, cars, gold, land, and the size of a bank account. But the Quran calls us to a much deeper understanding. The Quran teaches that true wealth is not about accumulation. True wealth is about what we give, how we live, and the state of our hearts. It is not about stacking treasures in this world, but about building treasures in the hereafter. Think about it. A person may have millions, they may have endless properties and endless assets, but if that wealth came through cheating, through lying, through crushing the rights of others, then in reality, that wealth is nothing but a curse. It looks like success on the outside, but inside, it eats away at the soul. It creates sleepless nights, endless worries, constant fear of loss, and an emptiness that money cannot fill. Wealth without integrity is like drinking salt water. It never quenches the thirst, it only makes you more thirsty. The Quran wants us to recognize this illusion so that we do not spend our lives chasing a mirage. Now think of another person, someone who does not have millions, someone who may live with modest means. Their house is small, their income is limited, their possessions are few, but they live with honesty. They refuse to cheat. They provide for their family with dignity. They give in charity even if it is a small amount, and they share whatever they can with those around them. This person may be considered poor by the standards of the world, but in the sight of Allah, they may be richer than the kings and billionaires of this world. Why? Because their wealth is measured not by what they accumulated, but by the contentment in their heart and the goodness in their deeds. This is the measure the Quran teaches us. Real wealth is contentment. Contentment is the ability to say Alhamdulillah with whatever you have. It is the ability to sleep peacefully at night without envy, without greed, without the constant hunger for more. It is knowing that what is in your hand is temporary, but what is in your heart is eternal. Contentment frees us from the chains of materialism. It makes us masters over money instead of slaves to it. A content person may have less in quantity but infinitely more in quality. Real wealth is also generosity. Generosity is the proof that money does not own us. When we give to others, we are proving that money is only a tool. It is not our master. We use it to uplift, to support, and to spread goodness. The Quran constantly praises those who give, not because Allah needs their wealth, but because giving purifies their hearts. Generosity transforms money from a source of arrogance into a source of blessing. A small coin given with sincerity can outweigh mountains of gold hoarded in greed, and real wealth is integrity. The Quran calls us again and again to honesty in trade, in contracts, in promises. A dishonest dollar is not wealth, it is poison. It destroys trust, it harms society, and it brings no blessing. Integrity, on the other hand, brings barakah. Even if the amount is small, if it is earned with integrity, it carries blessing that spreads into every part of our lives. It nourishes the soul, it strengthens the family, and it secures the future. Integrity is the foundation upon which true wealth stands. Brothers and sisters, look at the world today. How many people are drowning in riches yet are empty inside? How many corporations dominate markets, yet their workers suffer? Their consumers are cheated, and their profits come from injustice. How many families are torn apart by inheritance disputes, fighting over money that none of them will carry to the grave? This is what happens when we forget the Quran's definition of wealth. When wealth becomes about accumulation, it becomes a source of corruption. But when wealth is seen as contentment, generosity, and integrity, it becomes a source of peace. Let us remember that death is the great equalizer. No matter how much wealth we pile up, none of it will enter the grave with us. The clothes will not follow us, the bank accounts will not transfer, the properties will not accompany us. What remains is only the record of how we lived and how we gave. That is why the Quran shifts our vision from worldly counting to eternal counting. Not how many cars you drove, but how many people you helped. Not how big your house was, but how open your door was. Not how much you owned, but how much you gave with sincerity. Brothers and sisters, there is also another hidden danger when wealth is seen only as accumulation. It creates endless comparison. We look at our neighbor, at our friend, at people on screens, and we feel inferior. We say, they have more than me, they are more successful than me. But the Quran teaches us to look at wealth with a different lens. The true measure is not who has more, but who has more gratitude. The true competition is not in gathering possessions, but in gathering good deeds. If we compete with others, it should be in generosity, in kindness, in integrity. When we carry this perspective, our lives change. We stop chasing illusions. We stop wasting energy on envy. We stop measuring our worth by numbers. Instead, we measure our worth by sincerity. A single meal shared with love can be worth more than a banquet bought with arrogance. A small home filled with remembrance of Allah can be worth more than a mansion filled with heedlessness. A simple life lived with honesty can be worth more than an empire built on injustice. Brothers and sisters, the Quran calls us to free ourselves from the slavery of accumulation and to embrace the richness of contentment, generosity, and integrity. If Allah has given you wealth, then use it with gratitude, share it with others, and protect it with honesty. If Allah has given you little, then know that your richness lies not in the size of your earnings, but in the size of your heart. In both cases, the true measure of wealth is not what enters your hand, but what leaves it for the sake of Allah, and what rests in your heart as contentment. So let us strive for this real wealth. Let us be people who give more than we take, who live with honesty, and who find peace in gratitude. Let us be remembered not for the numbers in our accounts, but for the goodness in our actions. Because in the end, the Quran tells us clearly, the treasures of this world will vanish, but the treasures of faith, generosity, and integrity will remain forever.